Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Yeah, just who are we talking about again? I forgot.
I'm pretty sure it was Darth Maul, right?
Darth Maul, yeah, Obi-Wan. That's how it is. Alright, good call, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2, joining me today is...
Geek for fun.
Yay! The guy who's now just in every episode. Today we're doing another character discussion, and we were talking about Darth Maul. Darth Maul's this weird character for me where he's kind of part of the reason I got into Star Wars ever in the first place. Because, I was that age when The Phantom Menace came out that I was too young to realize how stupid it was. And so I was just like, oh, Darth Maul, double-bladed lightsaber, that's so cool. I'll go watch the other Star Wars movies so I can get prepared for The Phantom Menace. Those weren't very good, but this Phantom Menace movie fucking rocked.
Wow.
I was like 9. It came out in 99. I would have been 8 or 9 years old, tops. It was like 9-year-old crack, man. It was a double-bladed lightsaber. He had cool, like, spiky horns. It was a fucking cool guy. So yeah, I always had, like, kind of this very, very early days connection to Darth Maul, and he's one of those guys who's just really cool. That being said, when I did watch the movie, I was very disappointed by the punk level of Darth Maul. I gotta tell you, he goes out in like a strike, and it always kind of bugged me. And you're waiting for him the whole damn movie. They did not shy away from showing you all the best shots of him in the trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're waiting for him the whole damn movie, and then he finally shows up, and... he kills Qui-Gon, and that's pretty legit. But then, I don't know. Obi-Wan takes him out pretty quickly. And I always remember being disappointed by that.
You and an entire generation, because that's why we have more content to talk about outside of that, is that everyone was disappointed by that.
Right? Like, there's so much Darth Maul. It's ridiculous. He's, like, such a minor character in just the truth of things. He's not even a real Sith Lord in continuity. He's just, like, an assassin that's being, like, told he's a Sith, right? So he's not even really a proper Sith user, or Dark Force user. He's just this, like... mad dog on Palpatine's leash, and that really just hasn't stopped the fandom from just using him everywhere. Like, I know there's a Legends comic where like Vader is doing a thing and like some people have resurrected Darth Maul and he's got the fucking robot legs and Vader has to fight Darth Maul, and I'm like, what even sense does that make? It's such a stretch to get Vader to fight Darth Maul, and then like he's everywhere. Remember the Force Unleashed when you run into Proxy and he's like, I've been saving this program for years, and then he transforms into Darth Maul and he's a boss fight. It's like, yeah, that's so fucking pointless. Like, what? Like, fucking Starkiller is gonna know who the hell Darth Maul is? That's totally there just for the fans.
He's very much the prequels Boba Fett. He's that character who doesn't say a word, but looks bitched. Doesn't really do a whole lot, but the reputation behind him is so grand that you think he did a lot, or you can imagine all his grand exploits, and both of them both have like in Legends continuity, and then it's being teased with Boba Fett in canon, but it's just straight up confirmed with Darth Maul, is that they both survived after their initial first cheap death. That's from Boba Fett coming out to Sarlacc, or Darth Maul being with robot legs and coming back and taking over the Mandalorians. Like, both of them had a comeback, then got more development after their first initial appearances, whereas George Lucas created both of them both times as just fodder.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes to the strength of like Star Wars is considered such like Lucas's baby, and ultimately, I think early days Lucas would have admitted this more than modern day Lucas would have. Ultimately, Lucas is very lucky that he surrounded himself with very talented people. Ultimately, a lot of what's great about Star Wars has nothing to do with Lucas most of the time. And I think, you mentioning Boba Fett and Darth Maul is an extension of that. Wherein these people that, these costume and character designers are just very, very talented individuals that are like really great at their craft. And so they put something on screen that's so much better than the script has any right for it to be, Like, Darth Maul could have just been a guy. There's no reason for him to look anywhere near as cool as he does. Darth Maul could have just been a dude, and if it were the 70s, he probably would have just been a dude. But the fact that they like go through the horns and the contact lenses and the red face and the like kind of spiky teeth that you only get a little taste of that, but it's still pretty neat. That just helps sell so much of it. And again, he's still all over the prequel stuff. Like, undeniably, Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, is the more important character for villain of the prequel trilogy, right? Like, he's at least in 2 of the movies, albeit briefly. Palpatine makes more sense as, the face of the prequel trilogy, because that really is his series of movies. He's the consistent face throughout it. Darth Maul's still all over the marketing to this day. Like, when a Lego set comes out and it's got, like, from the prequel era or something, or the Clone Wars era, it's usually Darth Maul that they put, like, somewhere on the branding as just part of the image for it, And
I think it makes a lot of sense because, again, it's that he's such a visual character that is striking to look at, even just from no knowledge of Star Wars. He's got that kind of Darth Vader Yoda effect where the image of the characters alone becomes as much of an icon as like the lightsaber. They're infinitely parodied, they're infinitely referenced. These are just really solid character designs. And Darth Maul kind of representing that, while also, as much as his lack of personality in The Phantom Menace is a downside because he'll be developed so much more later, I do think that basis is what got a lot of people on board with that, especially young kids. Because the idea of the silent badass is such a young boy like fixation, because it's just this like unstoppable monster. It's only when you get older that you realize, oh, he's just an attack dog, but like Palpatine's the real threat. But when you're a kid and you see Darth Maul and he's doing all these crazy stunts, and I think it really helped that Ray Park's performance is easily one of the best stunt actors in Star Wars. Like, his choreography in that fight is fantastic. So him having that unique style and having that unique weapon and being efficient with it and knowing how to do it with it, albeit the one scene at the end, he is kind of dominating the entire movie. So I think that helped a lot in getting people to hook onto him in almost it's the same way they did with Venom. Is a lot of the best Venom stories were like in retrospect, when like the people like something Donny Cates is doing a really good Venom run right now, and he grew up on the 90s Venom, and he's thoroughly admitted, oh yeah, as I'm older now, I'm realizing a lot of those stories are really, really bad, but it sparked my imagination where I want to do things with him now. And I think a lot of the people obviously didn't grow up on Darth Maul when they were writing like the prequel novels and stuff, but I think he lit a spark with some people because you just look at him and you know his face tells a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like all the interesting stuff with Darth Maul is of course done outside of the movies. Well, spoiler alert. The best part of Solo is literally the very very end. With Darth Maul, like that was the coolest thing to me. I was like, "Oh shit, for real?" I was not expecting that. Yeah, Darth Maul, like everything good with him was done after the first movie. Like, there's just, if you're a Darth Maul fan, I refuse to believe that you'll put the Phantom Menace anywhere in your top 10 Darth Maul stories. You know, like just to be perfectly honest about it, because I know like a lot of Mandalorian fans kind of hated having Darth Maul and Savage Opress like take over Mandalore and stuff in the Clone Wars. I fucking adore that arc. That is one of my top arcs in the Clone Wars cartoon because it's just so you like Darth Maul was the attack dog, and he spent years in shame and squalor for that. And then you realize when he gets like power back and stuff, when he starts regaining composure and you have the whole Mandalorian arc, you realize he actually did kind of learn his lesson and did take some of the lessons Sidious taught him. And that's what makes like that duel between Sidious, Savage, and Maul so impressive is he was legitimately becoming a threat to Sidious. Not like he was going to topple the whole plan, but Sidious saw you can at least make an argument that Sidious saw his rise as enough of a thorn that he wanted to nip it in the bud, you know? Mm-hmm. And that was something I was really, really impressed with. I thought that was such a cool idea for the arc. And it's a little disappointing that, like, you just go from Sidious kind of torturing Maul again, where he regresses to this child that Sidious just stole. You go from that, and then you just don't know what happens until you have Maul show back up in Rebels.
Which is something that has been, again, it was going to be in the next season of Clone Wars, and because that got cut short, they threw it in one of the comics. We're getting the season 6 or something, I think it's called. I can't remember which number it is, but the new Clone Wars season is coming on this streaming service, so maybe we'll get that animated in that, because Maul is going to be in that series. But in the comics version of that, it's really lackluster because he just escapes with like General Grievous like gets too cocky torturing him, and he gets out like to escape by like tricking him. But it's like there's no like confrontation with Sidious, there's no like the potential left open there. It's almost better if you don't read that comic because it's a cooler to leave it ambiguous and imagine what happened. Maybe the animation will like save some of that. But on your point of the character development, I really agree, and I think retroactively it served to make his lack of character in Phantom Menace a really good thing as like the start, because from his perspective, like he was groomed to be a Sith assassin, but he was told the entire time that he was a Sith Lord. If you count the Darth Plagueis thing, then it's just Darth Plagueis and Sidious was the master and Sidious was the apprentice, while Sidious was still training Maul. He was never meant to be part of the rule of two. He was just told him he was. So the idea that he's got this constant, more than any other Sith Lord, I feel, like more than Vader, more than Dooku, because he's the only one, even Palpatine wasn't indoctrinated into Sith from such a young age. He's got such an idealized view of the Sith and what they are and their greatness, and almost like it's hard to believe Maul would ever try to kill Palpatine and take over, which is probably why he wasn't a very good apprentice, because he almost sees him too much of a father figure despite all the horrible things he's done to her. So you start with that. You start with someone who is so loyal to the Sith to the point of being like a cultist. And then he's beaten. Like he's so confident in his abilities, he's so confident in everything. He's beaten and ashamed and left to just think on that for years. And when he gets to rise from that and he realizes, oh, I've been replaced, I've been abandoned, he has to become a character now because he can't just default on the thing, his safety net of following what Palpatine says and the Sith Lords. So when you get to see him actually develop that, you realize he becomes a better Sith Lord the moment Palpatine isn't training him.
And like that's just one of the cool things about it is, like I don't want to get into theorizing about the Force, but one of my theories on the Force in relation to the dark side is literally there is only a finite supply of it, and the more concentrated it is, the more powerful the user becomes with it.
That's canon.
Yeah, I figured there's probably something, but I didn't know. I didn't want to speak in case there wasn't. And so, like, the idea of, like, Maul's actually starting to gain a lot of power, and not just in, like, the metaphysical sense of the power of the Force. Like, one of my theories about the dark side of the Force is gaining power in other ways lends to your power. Because, like, there's that really cool scene in Revenge of the Sith where Anakin swears allegiance to Palpatine, and, like, you can almost see Palpatine get a boost. Like, he just, like, like, it's just this very enriching feeling. And so I kind of like to imagine that when Maul was sitting on the Mandalorian throne and stuff, and when Sidious goes to confront him, he says, "You have become a rival." Hashtag Dragon Ball DC, hashtag Dragon Ball Star Wars, hashtag Ian voices Sidious. Anyway, but like that whole scene just works for that theory for me, because he's not only just gaining more control of the dark side, but he's just gaining more like abstract political power, and I think that's just a cool little moment there.
It's definitely something that makes him evolve from, because I do like to see it in like I don't know how much of it is canon anymore, but it doesn't matter. It's all still good story, so fuck it. The old Republic style of Sith is what Darth Maul represents to me. He's an ancient Sith brought into the modern day, where they are just attack dogs, they are just rage, they don't really have that much thought, they just follow their master's orders and use their rage to power. Whereas he then evolves into the modern Sith, which is the shadowy figure, the one who sits in the background and pulls the strings. He's still very active combatant, because that's just who he is. He was made to be a weapon, so that's always part of him, like more than Palpatine and even more than Dooku. But he definitely does transition into, like you're saying, consolidating power through more than just, I'm really good with a lightsaber. One of my favorite quotes from the Darth Bane novel is that the light side of the Force is like, if you had a candle and then you lit other candles, it makes all the light grow stronger. Whereas the dark side of the Force is like pouring poison into a cup. If you pour it into many cups, the poison dilutes. If you pour it into one cup, it will kill a man instantly.
I like that. That's good.
So that's a reference there for you if you want to back up your theory there, because that's the explanation for it there. And I really like the idea, like you say, Sidious sees that someone's taking a little bit out of his cup, so he stops to, because it's not like even a case where, oh, I'm proud of you. Sidious has never been proud of a single thing in his life except for himself. So it is literally like Maul. It's almost heartbreaking, especially when we see how he ends up after this in Rebels. When that first confrontation happens, despite how far he's grown and how much of a master he's been to Savage, how much he's dominated Obi-Wan, he's just completely on the top of his game that entire arc. The moment Sidious comes up, he's on his knees, he's bowing, he's immediately regressed.
Yeah, like I said, he just becomes that child again, and you have Sidious using the Force Lightning on him, which I don't think we ever see Maul use Force Lightning.
I don't think he can.
Yeah, I don't think he ever developed that skill, and you just see him being tortured that way, and it's like, man, Sidious has been doing this to him since he was a child. Like that's just it's just so evident in that moment.
One of the there's a Darth Maul novel which goes into some of his training, and one of the things he did is when Maul was I think it was like 6 or 7, he just dumped him on Mustafar for a year and was like, if you live, I'll come and train you some more.
So Piccolo.
Yeah, pretty much. So he did the Piccolo thing, but like in a volcano. There's that. I actually feel like that's a good segue because I think this is my favorite iteration of Maul, is after everything he's been through, he fell, he rose, he fell again, and he's just on Malachor, and Ezra finds him, and he's just this conniving, and he's the most like Sidious he'll ever get, and it's fantastic.
Oh no, it is absolutely great. And one of the things I really like about it is he's kind of moved past it at that point, because you're right, he is the most like Sidious, but in a very particular way, because Rebels does a lot of stuff to play with that middle ground of the Force, right?
Yes.
You got your light side, your dark side. And I wouldn't say Maul is using any light side Force energy, or if he is, it's very minimal. I think he's just like kind of rejected anything to do with the Sith, because like again, he was raised this attack dog, and then he became more of a proper Sith pulling the strings thing, and neither of those worked out for him. So now he's like, no, fuck it, I just want revenge, and I'm not gonna try to aim higher than that. So I'm just going to manipulate people using the tricks I've learned from the Sith, and you know, I still hate the Jedi because that one was burned into me, and also a Jedi cut off my fucking legs. But I'm just gonna ruin everything for everyone. So like in Rebels, he's almost like a rogue state, you know? He's just trying to disrupt everything, which was really interesting.
And it makes a lot of sense to take him there, because even in Clone Wars, he was like the third faction. He was like the chaos, the unpredictable factor. You throw him in Rebels, and he just embraces that role, because that's the one thing that did work for him. And I didn't really think of it that way, but you're definitely right. He does feel more like not even a Sith, but just accepting his fact as like a dark side adept. He's using the dark side, but how the Sith use the dark side is very particular. It's why like Kylo Ren isn't a Sith. It's just using the dark side doesn't make you a Sith, and I think Maul's choosing that on purpose because he's just so done with systems and everything that he legit does have some good points when he talks to Ezra. Like all of it is manipulation, but not everything he says is a lie. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was like, and that's the best kind of manipulation, right? Where it's like, you can't just out and out reject it because there's truth in it, you know? So it makes it murky. He's like, oh, the Jedi are murderers, and they handed power to the Emperor and stuff like that. And it's like, he's not wrong, but you take an emotionally vulnerable teenager like Ezra and you try to explain the subtleties of how that's true, but not a complete picture, and suddenly it doesn't have the same impact of telling you the Jedi handed power to the Emperor, you know? That stuff's just really, really important and really good for the character. Now, how do you feel... I want to talk, like, 2 stages here. How do you feel about Darth Maul's death in Rebels versus how do you feel about the fact that he's now showing back up in stuff like Han Solo, and there's obviously speculation that he'll be in the Obi-Wan series?
It really feels like there was a big lack of communication between the 2 Star Wars things, and they blew their load way too early. Because I think Dave Filoni going into Rebels was like, oh, I've been the one who's been in control of Maul's story. I've got a very good definitive ending here, and he's right. He does have a fantastic ending for the character. But I'm going to do that. But the people at Star Wars probably weren't paying too much attention to their silly Disney XD cartoon series. So they were like, oh, we got Maul if we want to do an Obi-Wan. Because again, a lot of their decisions here with like the Obi-Wan thing getting made very late in the game. That was going to be a movie and it was a TV series, and Solo had a lot of production. We don't even know if the Darth Maul scene was added in reshoots. It seems like it would have been something that you could do like that, like an addition late in the game once they decided they did want to use Maul. So I feel like this has just kind of been... It can't be planned. Because you just don't blow your load that early by saying, okay, here's the end of the character. Oh, here's all the less interesting stuff before the final fantastic confrontation in the middle of that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right. Like, it's going to be really hard to justify it. And maybe Maul won't be in the Obi-Wan series. Like, I think... Disney knows marketing, but also, if there's anything they know, it is quality control. Like, Disney does have, despite, like, even their bad movies have a certain level of quality to them, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to think of just, like, a really awful Disney picture that came out in the last 30 years. Let me put that little asterisk on it. So they do have a consistent level of quality that they bring to a thing, so it's hard to imagine that they won't find some way to justify it, or maybe they'll do something crazy and have like fucking Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan be old by the time he finally meets Maul. Maybe they'll just adapt the scene for live action. Who knows? I doubt it, but like it's gonna be really hard to have any dramatic weight if they try to put Maul up against Obi-Wan again, because you're not gonna be able to convince me that there was any interaction between those two characters between the last time they saw each other in Clone Wars and their confrontation in Rebels. You just can't, right? Like, there's no way. So I really hope that the Obi-Wan series just doesn't use him and focuses on Obi-Wan's life on Tatooine. I don't know. I really don't know what they're gonna do. And this is one of the things where, like, it was probably better for a lot of these expanded universe characters when we weren't making new movies again, because ultimately with Star Wars, the thing that matters are the movies. And so it's always a little disappointing when those things will overwrite stuff in the comics or other material that might arguably be better, you know?
Mm-hmm. I feel you there. There are some... Because it's weird, because if you just look at the idea of Obi-Wan, Ben Kenobi, old man Obi-Wan, gets to fight Darth Maul. Like, on paper, it's just like the moment you introduce him as, like, oh, this was Obi-Wan's greatest villain, you immediately want to see him fight Alec Guinness. So that's always been something in the fandom. You start with the Old Wounds comic, which first introduced the idea of, oh, what if Maul lived and he had mechanical legs and was around this whole time? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like, it was a cool fight scene, but there's not a lot of depth there. So that being overwritten by Rebels was like really fantastic, because they took that idea of Obi-Wan having a nemesis, and then they, throughout all of Clone Wars and then Rebels, they gave it weight to both characters and made it mean something. Ended in one of the best duels in Star Wars. So there's that.
So, okay, please don't say that, because like it's a great fucking fight, but it's not a proper duel.
It is a duel.
You're right, but like it's just, oh my god, that like kind of ruined that attitude kind of ruined that scene for me on first watch, because I was like expecting what everyone expects when they say a great Star Wars duel, and then it's like over 10 seconds I'm like, wait, what? Did I like watch a bad edit of this or something? Am I being
just because you
punked?
can't appreciate art.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate art, but like you hype it up the wrong way, and it kind of undercuts the emotional weight to it. It's one of the most poignant duels in Star Wars. It is not the coolest duel. Let's put it that way.
I guess it depends on your definition of cool, man. I'll agree with you there.
There's no backflips.
But a dude gets fucking chopped in half.
Right.
I just love the idea that Obi-Wan made sure to curve the other direction this time when he bisected him.
Poor guy. No, I mean that duel is great. I guess I'm more interested for Maul to show up, you know, and kind of piece together what he was doing between Clone Wars and Rebels. Since he's kind of like, you know, out on the ropes, and Solo shows us that he's trying again to use that third faction, kind of build up more of a criminal enterprise to use against Sidious without having to, because he knows he can't beat him, so trying to use a criminal enterprise to undermine Sidious, and I guess that kind of works with my theory about power. If he can like undermine some of Sidious's power, he does conceivably make him at least a little weaker, and maybe that's just all he can settle for at that point.
I think that works, and that kind of goes to what I would like to see done. And I think if we keep the Rebels ending, where I would have gone with more is just forget putting him ever with Kenobi again. That story is told. The story that we didn't get in Rebels, but was heavily teased, and what they should do is make him the villain in the Darth Vader movie. Have it be that it isn't Obi-Wan who took Maul's criminal empire and Solo down. It's Palpatine sent Vader to go do it. And then you get to have the Vader-Maul confrontation, but you also get to have a Vader who's still very much pre-Empire, so he's still an attack dog, versus Maul who's grown past that. And you can get really interesting stuff between that dynamic there, because it would still be a young-ish Anakin.
Yeah. And like you obviously leave Maul alive, but that leaves him as bloodied and beaten as he is when he's first introduced in Rebels. And
then it plays why when he sees Vader's come into Malachor, he's so fucking terrified.
Yeah. That'd be pretty good. Oh man, I like that idea. Yeah, that's a strong pitch. I don't know. It's got some cool stuff. I like the idea of Maul as a character. I think he's gotten, you know, more development than he probably had any right to. And that's just one of those things I can appreciate about Star Wars, and the fact that, like, you know, any character on screen for like 2.5 seconds has like a fucking 7-book series and just tons of background. Oh man. All right. Alfie, who are we gonna? Well, I guess let's go on to recommendations. So, my top recommendation is the Maul episodes of Star Wars Rebels. You could probably do a pretty good edit of those and make them into a movie. After that, I'd recommend his arc in Rebels. Again, that one's more like connected to the events of the series as a whole. Since Rebels is a much more arc-based, season-based series. So I guess I'd probably just say his first couple episodes, because I think that's a really strong showing. And then there's a really good fan film. It's actually the fan film that launched Geeky Gentleman Fan Film Reviews, so I'd definitely recommend checking out that one. It got pretty popular, and it was a pretty well done thing. So yeah, just the Darth Maul fan film. It'll probably be like the very first thing that shows up if you YouTube search it.
Well, I mean, depending on how long ago that was, because there's been quite a few.
Yeah, but I mean...
But all of them are quite good. So
yeah.
you pick the first one and there you go.
Darth Maul Apprentice. There you go. Darth Maul Apprentice, a Star Wars fan film. 21 million views by T7 Pro. I really like that one. So there you go.
Given how many stuff there is with him, I'm kind of... All the best stuff is what Ian just stole from me, so I'm going to go with...
That's why I go first.
Son of a bitch. There's a really good... he's in the Darth Plagueis novel, so like hit and miss depending on what your tastes are. but the later sections of that do have Maul in them are really interesting to get into. I think it wasn't collaborated with, but it sets up what he becomes in Clone Wars so well, because it really gets into his mentality of just how obedient and loyal and idealized he views Palpatine as this father who saved him, and like how much he loves him and how much that sickens Palpatine, and he just wants to get this fucking dog out of his face when it keeps coming up to pet. Like, it's that kind of like really horrible. You makes you feel really bad for Maul, even though he's doing all these horrible things, because it shows him from when he's like a kid doing all of that stuff. So I really like those parts. I think check out some of the Legend stuff where he fights Darth Vader is pretty cool. Like, the end to that fight's really interesting. That's probably how I see that fight going down, if it ever happened. If like Maul was in his prime and had both his legs versus Vader, I think that's a fun thing to read. So only one issue, and that's about it in terms of what I can say. Keep an eye out for the next season of Clone Wars, because he's going to be in that versus Ahsoka, and that looks cool.
Cool. All right, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time. Oh, wait, no, shit. Alfie, who are we talking about next time?
I was just about to interrupt you. That's a good one. Currently, I'm having a bit of trouble thinking, but again, you'd let me know if you've talked about this person before. You done Wolverine?
Nope.
Let's do Wolverine.
Alrighty. He's the best he is at what he does, from what I understand.
Snicked.
Alright, well, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm a geek for fun.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.